you ready for summer? Wherever summer takes you, make sure you take your favorite radio station with you on your adventures with the free iHeartRadio app. That's right. No matter how far from home you travel, this station, the music you love, and the best podcasts in the world will be right there with you in your pocket.
Summer soundtrack.
Sunscreen, flip-flops, and the free iHeart app. Must-haves for any summer checklist. Download the free iHeartRadio app and discover music, radio, and podcasts you'll love this summer.
iHeartRadio. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media platforms. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. We say all those places where you can get at us because we're up there. We got the video going on. Calvin Williams already saying, let's get the party started, as we have another jam-packed show for you today, Tuesday, June 7th. Just as a reminder for those of you living in the land of enchantment listening to this, primary elections going on right now for New Mexico's, and turnout has been, at least for Doña County, not great. So make sure that you're taking part of this if you are at all interested in having yourself well representative there. We've got the District 2 United States elected representative, congresswoman currently, but of course we got that term: governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, attorney general, auditor, treasurer, commissioner of public lands. So yeah, ever so slightly worth going out there, and even magistrate, judges, sheriff. So just a little few important positions on the ballot there. But if you also wanted to drop comments over there, as Calvin Williams is already doing a great example of on the Facebook and YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, we also have Marco Cervantes, Robbie Flores, and Flaco Jimenez dropping those likes there. We do appreciate it. So the other things we will also be talking about here today, we also got that contest out right now. Don't forget, leave your comments over through the talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app. Just be sure you're listening to us and hit that little microphone button, and you can leave your comment for us and be entered in to win the drawing with everything that is going on with our news partners, and not even just our news partners talking today, but of course our hair and beard sponsors over at Gentleman's Republic, the $100 gift card from them, worth your while here. Mark Rios asking what's going on at the DA's office. If you're talking about there in Doña Ana County, do blues that on the list here? I'm 90% sure that was on the list here. Let me double check here. Yeah, we do have, well, judges anyway. I'll have to double check, make sure they're on there. But if you're talking about some of the more recent reporting going on, including from like El Paso Matters and such, yeah, there's been some questions that have been coming out about certain programs that, well, I'll just read the El Paso Matters article title for it here, saying that new DA dismantles El Paso's legacy on tackling domestic violence, which, yeah, that one's been percolating for a minute here. Yeah, they'll have to get more into that. I would like to see a little bit more before we delve into it, I will be perfectly honest. But even beyond that, talking about the county of El Paso, now looking to, since we talked about it yesterday, opening up a contract for proposals for a migrant processing center, according again to the article title there from El Paso Matters. We had talked about that potentially being a no-bid contract involving Endeavor, which is a company involved in this sphere, but that has certain issues, concerns, investigations specifically going on with them. But now that contract having been put out before, or the rather idea of it having been put out before the actual suspension, well, injunction for now of the removal of Title 42, of course, the Trump-era pandemic-related policy that has been announced to be removed by the CDC, pretty much at the urging, it seems like to me, of the Biden administration. At the very least, they're not fighting it, saying, well, it's a medical decision, essentially. Now that that has not been done, the county of El Paso has now clarified as of the start of this week, again reported on by El Paso Matters, what I'm referencing directly here, that they are going to be taking bids. Any GSA, Government Services Administration, qualified supplier of such required services will be able to submit a bid on this as opposed to being the previously no bid contract. Endeavor is still one of the companies qualified under that, even if there are a couple of extra notes in my mind. But again, according to a statement from the county as reported on by El Paso Matters, said the county may or may not get a proposal from Endeavor, depending on what the San Antonio-based nonprofit is an approved GSA contractor. And again, they are listed there, but now saying that they are currently in negotiations with Endeavor, but now opening it up further so that there will be, other offers potential. This, of course, comes as two major factors are still percolating in my mind when it comes to the entire immigration, migrant, border security situation that we're talking about here. At last count, 60,000 or so, give or take. It's kind of a guesstimation because anyone coming across is being still removed, obviously, waiting just in Juarez itself, apparently, according to, again, last estimation, after the, anticipated removal, but now injunction from the further removal of the Title 42 policy. And also there may be some talk about another nascent, caravan that has crossed the border from Guatemala into Mexico. So that will be something to keep an eye on. It'll be interesting to see more specifically in the intervening time anyway, how Mexican officials will respond to that, because of course they're supposed to be having, and had been prior to this, having some more stringent rules on their own part. But going back to as long as you don't make it our problem and don't stop and keep your butt moving, we won't treat you like our problem kind of thing. And migration in a whole other ways it's being discussed. Definitely top of my mind as we continue to talk about this here. But one other factor, of course, coming in after yesterday's ever so slight and mild brouhaha in city council proceedings, that has now resulted in apparently an ethics complaint coming out of from specifically city council member Peter Swarzbein, saying that he is then the incident that also happened back in February, saying I first drafted for the complaint immediately following the initial incident in February, but ultimately decided not to file it and hope that the situation with Mayor Leeser's inappropriate conduct towards myself and other members of council would improve. So, and then following Mayor's outburst and, of course, out-of-order comments during today's special city council meeting, this being submitted yesterday, of course, I don't feel that any improvement has occurred, and that is why I am filing this complaint now. We'll get more into that situation as we are going to be joined by Robbie Gray, editor of El Paso Inc. Here in a bit, give us some updates on the overall situation and, of course, how this current complaint may or may not actually have any impact on the source of this most recent, again, mild kerfuffle shouting match, anyway, within City Council. That was over the city manager contract, the extension there specifically, and what that might mean. Fluffy Meta saying more like a brouhaha, using more of a spelling of the Spanish term for witch there. And John Browson saying poor baby got his feelings hurt. Yeah, I mean, there are definitely some hurt feelings along here, but again, we'll get into that further here. And Flaco Jimenez saying a little bit earlier, they want to remove Title 42 but still require a vaccination when returning from an overseas trip. How does that make sense? There's a lot of sense that would be nice to be made in this whole situation, but the intersection of national politics, local situations, local contracts, and all is something that we will, of course, continue to focus on here. A couple of things that we do have on docket here for you in the show today, of course, besides having Robbie Gray coming up in the next segment. Also, more on, those processing centers, city council, all that stuff. So we got it coming up on the need for that first break of the hour here already. So again, we'll have a lot more to discuss here today. Matthew McConaughey's statements, among other things, a little bit later in the show. But more comments coming in include Calvin Williams saying that we need an independent investigation to see if the city manager has paid or done favors for board members. It would be interesting to see here, I think referring to city council members there. There have been, of course, some individuals who have had either repercussions or ultimately voted out because of previous one. I'm forgetting the previous council member's name, who had those speed bumps installed near-ish or around a Cathedral High School, apparently in contravention of actual policy, but rather as it's my district and you're going to do this. Maybe not exactly that, but it's certainly what it seemed like. So whether something like that is going on, might be worthy of a little bit looking further into. But again, taking that first break right now, coming out of this break, we will be talking with Robbie Gray, editor of El Paso Inc. about some of their recent stories, updates on this situation, of course, but also more of the development and other big things going on in and around town. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot more to come up here, a lot of situations, a lot of things affecting us here in the borderland. We'll delve into it as much as we can here right after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned. Father's Day is coming up, and if you are not already planning on it, A, you're welcome for the reminder, but B, let me give you a real simple answer for your gift-giving woes. If you've got a dad that either likes to cook or likes to eat or anywhere in between, good food often brings the family together, and some of the things that I rely on to make sure that the food I'm giving out is very good indeed is from our friends over at Enhanced Flavors. Again, Enhanced Flavors is your local source for over 40 different varieties of some of the best things in the world when it comes to extra virgin olive oil, flavored olive oils, and balsamic vinegars sourced from, well, where you'd want to find these places, but you don't have to travel there yourself, and they will deliver it right to your door. And even right now, they are offering an online discount code. If you want to place your own order, you can find them online, of course, at enhancedflavors.com. That's enhanced with a D, flavors.com, and just enter the discount code EF Radio, as in Enhanced Flavors Radio, EF Radio, and get 15% off your next order. They've got gift packs, they've got selections, they got everything you need to do to try it out for yourself. Provide it to the chef, burgeoning chef, or person who dislikes what the chef makes in your life, including just suggesting dad there. So again, find them online, enhancedflavors.com, or again, out in the community. Specifically, you can find them coming up here out at the Country Club Farmers Market, 1071 Country Club Road. They are going to be going out there 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. this weekend on Saturday. So make sure to check them out there, or again, online, enhancedflavors.com, enhanced with a D, flavors.com.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
That earlier collision on the I-10 westbound near downtown is finally cleared up. All westbound lanes are now back open near Brown past Cotton exit. Expect delays, now just a 10-minute delay. I-10 westbound at Piedras, a disabled vehicle blocking the left shoulder. A multi-vehicle accident from earlier, Joe Battle northbound at Montana Avenue. All those vehicles have moved to the right. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Truth with Lisa Booth podcast.
I'm Lisa Booth, and I'm relaunching my podcast, The Truth with Lisa Booth on the iHeart Network. We'll be joined by the biggest names to get to the truth of the critical issues facing our country. Check out The Truth with Lisa Booth every Monday and Thursday beginning May 2nd on the iHeart app, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
New on Curiosity Stream, she was a loving wife, a devoted mother. She also stole atomic secrets and gave them to the Soviets. Meet the woman whose deception kick-started the Cold War on the spy who stole the atom bomb. And
What if they catch you?
Then I shall be sure.
they're coming! Come back! Relive history's most death-defying escapes. It's Impossible Escapes, Civil War. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit CuriosityStream.com.
GDIT is hiring bilingual English-Spanish customer service representatives. Join us for a virtual career fair on June 8th to learn how you can impact the safety and security of our nation with GDIT. $500 sign-on bonus available for select positions. Register and apply at gdit.com/El Paso. That's gdit.com/El Paso.
Hey, it's Maura Courtney Lopez, and we know life is better together.
Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to make life's moments amazing.
We are all getting together more, and Smart Mouth's 24-hour power of fresh breath with just 2 rinses a day keeps us from worrying about bad breath in those up-close moments.
Go to smartmouth.com/radio to save 20% or find Smart Mouth at your favorite store to give you confidence as we get closer to each other.
Remember to make life's moments better together with Smart Mouth at smartmouth.com/radio.
Great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/trial. That's ZipRecruiter.com/trial.
Why should you volunteer with Meals on Wheels?
I never thought that 5 minutes could make so much difference in the lives of 2 people, but it has.
Drop off a warm meal and get more than you expect. Volunteer at americaletsdolunch.org. Brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to get at the show, particularly if you want to leave your comments online. A lot of people doing so are J. Maria Coleman, Calvin Williams, John Brazel, Tenflaco Jimenez, Mark Rios, Make Rios, I guess technically the way to say it, and a whole lot more. Plus, driving those likes, we do appreciate. Monica Cervantes, Robbie Flores, and Flaco Jimenez just helps us with all those algorithmic things in our mission to talk about all the things going on here as much as we can anyway. We never get to them all, and I doubt we ever will because there's always so much going on, but we do our best shot, of course, every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. So in effort of that, we do now have joining us here in the studio, Robbie Gray, editor of El Paso Inc. Thanks very much for stopping by as we do most first Tuesdays of the month.
Happy to be here as always.
Absolutely happy to have you as well because there's a lot going on. So we were talking about it a little bit before the break here. What, of course, is going on. City Council has been, well, I enjoy watching it anyway because I like being connected, but even for the casual observer, a little bit more, let's just call it exciting than usual without necessarily putting a qualitative sense on it just because of both the action going on. I mean, the second and third of this mayoral administration's vetoes ever have now come out. And then, of course, we have now an ethics complaint that we're mentioning a little bit before the break, more or less resulting out of it.
There's certainly plenty of drama, and this goes back even to last month when news first broke that the city manager was a finalist for a position in Frisco, Texas, and that precipitated everything that sort of followed. So city council votes to extend Gonzalez's contract, presumably in an effort to help keep him here. And that was promptly vetoed by the mayor. And city council responded by passing yet another extension of the contract, and that was vetoed again.
Slightly tweaked to that time around.
It was tweaked. So they didn't override the veto, but city council brought forward a second item that didn't have the salary cap that would have capped his salary at $450,000. So there was a tweak there. And then, the mayor responded with another veto, and that brings us to this week.
And this week, of course, we had the overriding of that veto because, of course, the second contract, the one after the initial veto, did have 6 city council members out of the 8 total in favor of it, which was considered at the time and then bore out to be veto-proof because they then, of course, go ahead and override that veto, essentially. So there is no more vetoing the override to the veto. So for the moment, this appears to be going forward, but of course, that's not the only thing. We mentioned a little bit first in the first segment there that there's now been an ethics complaint filed against the mayor of Oscar Leeser by, well, Mayor Pro Tem Peter Schwarzbein.
Yeah, that's correct. So this actually apparently goes to something back on February 1st. And as of now, I haven't seen any comments or statements from the mayor yet. So it's important to point out that this is one person's telling of this. But Schwarzbein has filed a code of conduct complaint, and basically he says that he raises issue about his treatment and how he felt threatened at one point back in February.
Yeah, saying, as we talked about a little bit earlier in his statement, Schwarzbein's, that is, that he doesn't feel any improvement has occurred since whatever that February incident was. Not totally clear what that one is at this point, but he's gone on to say is, quote, people can disagree in politics and healthy discussions are always welcome, but it should not turn into a threatening situation against anyone. I will expect that there will be a response from the mayor on that, though, guess not immediately here.
Right, and to be specific, I mean, some of the points from his complaint here is what Representative Schwarzbein says is he claims or alleges that the mayor told him, keep talking, then shut your mouth or I'll shut it for you. And then Schwarzbein claims and describes here that the mayor clenched his fist, kind of stood up straight, and he felt a little threatened at that moment. And that's sort of, this is a 2 or 3 page, code of conduct complaint here, but that's one of the key pieces of it.
So realistically speaking, while we're waiting for further debate on here, don't expect that this will have any impact on the city manager contract here. Of course, it'll color any future discussions going on to it. But just realistically, what kind of impact do you expect that in any way this moves forward, this complaint now, this would have on future business for city council?
Well, it is really early to say. I mean, this essentially was just filed, and we're waiting to hear kind of a response or what the mayor has to say about it. I don't know that it would have all that much impact on what's going on with the vetoes and the city manager's contract extension, because as of the beginning of this week, city council voted to override that veto. And so where it stands is the city manager's contract has been extended to 2029. And I'm not sure that this would have any impact on that, but we'll see.
Yeah. And again, we did have the majority, again, the supermajority technically, though not strictly speaking in this case, voting in favor of that contract extension, vote overriding the mayor's veto again on it. And we did have, of course, 2 city council members voting against it. One of them, notably Joe Molinar, quoted in some of y'all's reporting saying that his current contract before it was amended didn't expire for another 2 years. So why are we trying to amend the contract now? So I expect that'll still keep coming up.
Right, and that was echoing the mayor's argument as well, is that it was premature. So there were still 2 years on the city manager's contract. So why are we extending it for another 5 years now? We should evaluate it in 2 years. That was the argument that the mayor made, as well as the city rep, in sort of opposing that extension.
So kind of related to a city council business, but not exactly part of this current kerfuffle, as I've been putting it, is, of course, what's been going on with lighting in El Paso. We have, and this one is just interest because the actual explanation of it, I will be perfectly honest, we got at least a couple not too far down the street from our offices here on Mesa, and I'd noticed it, and I guess I wrote it off in my own mind as maybe like a drug prevention effort, because I'd heard of similar things in other places of blue lights make it harder to find veins and therefore deters intravenous drug use. But that's also usually done in like bathrooms and not just like
I can't
on the
imagine
streets.
that would happen often on the street.
Yeah.
And this has been noticeable enough that people have been calling in to the Texas Department of Transportation and to the city to point out these lights that, I mean, really, if you've seen it on Donovan or on Montana or some of the other streets, I mean, people have described it as sort of a dystopian science fiction look, almost cyberpunk or something like that. It's kind of odd. And actually, that's a question that was submitted through our new inquiries platform that we have at El Paso Inc. So I'll answer that here real quick, but briefly, if we launched this new system at our website, elpasoinc.com, where readers can essentially submit questions that they it can vary from very important questions to not so important questions to the purple haze on El Paso roads. So that link is at elpasoinc.com, and readers can submit their questions there. So what we found out looking into these lights is it turns out that they're the result of defective light bulbs. So there's so far fewer than 200 affected. We reached out to the company Acuity Brands, and this is apparently an issue actually with all their products sort of across the country with these bulbs. And my favorite part is their technical description of the issue. So they tell us it's due to a spectral shift caused by phosphor displacement.
Which is a long technical way of kind of saying like it ain't working like it's supposed to.
Exactly. That's the technical term.
That's not what they're saying. That's what I'm saying.
So this change in the light happens over time. So what the city is doing is they're replacing the light fixtures as they get reports. So if you're driving around the city, you see this strange purple light, report it to the city, and they're going out and replacing them at the company's cost, not the city's cost.
And again, I just want to mention here again the inquiries, because elpasoinc.com/INCQUIRIES inquiries. I mean, it's a nice play on words. Looks a bit better in print than we're talking about it on radio here, but you can find that by, again, going straight to your website. And then you also, once you've gotten some responses through this platform, you're also putting out even on polls, particularly on Twitter and other ways, right?
So we've gotten more questions than we're able to answer. And we want to give our readers an opportunity to choose which ones we answer. So we put it out kind of for a vote through a poll where folks can go through and vote on that and choose what we select next.
Okay, and you had a poll at the start of this month. Among other things that were on it was a question about this, among other things. So if people are wanting to see about that, just follow y'all on Twitter at El Paso Inc. And of course, submit their own questions through that. Again, we also like talking a little bit about investigative reporting, getting into answers here in the region. So this is just another avenue that we've got coming up for it.
It's a way to give readers the opportunity to participate in what we cover. I mean, ultimately, what we're trying to write is what's of interest to our readers. So this is a way where they can express to us what their interest is, and we can focus on that. We see a lot of questions regarding El Paso's roads, the quality of the roads, the color of the streetlights. It seems like El Pasoans are very concerned about roads. So that's going to be a focus of ours in the coming weeks as well.
Makes a lot of sense. I know that we have at least more than a few people out there on the roads right now. Hope you're staying safe and not feeling the need to swerve the wheel in response to anything we're talking about here. Get home and then be mad is the way I'll say it there. But of course, we'll have a lot more coming up. We got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get to more of the stories here, including a famous El Pasoan who's going to be the subject of a new story, appropriate for as we're just past Memorial Day, of course, and plus more on downtown renovation and revitalization. So we're going to be talking with Robbie. He'll be sticking around with us and talking about a whole lot more after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. A lot of comments coming in. Maria Coleman, John Browsleton, Eric Von Holstein-Rathlow, RJ, and more. We'll get to some of those and a whole lot more after this break with more with Robbie here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. Homeland Security Investigation Special Agents in El Paso, along with Border Patrol, rescued a 1-year-old girl after the toddler was separated from her mother by human smugglers. Border Patrol agents assigned to Santa Teresa encountered a migrant family from Mexico, a 37-year-old mother and her 11-year-old son, near Magnut and Anapra on Friday. The family was taken to a processing center for family verification and processing, but during that processing, the mother stated that her 1-year-old daughter was taken from her by human smugglers in Mexico. Border Patrol agents investigated and discovered that the toddler was scheduled to travel to Dallas by bus on Saturday. They contacted HSI, who found the child and the smuggler before they departed El Paso by bus. The child has been reunited with her mother, and the alleged smuggler, 23-year-old Rube Ramos, has been arrested for transporting an undocumented non-citizen. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
That earlier collision on the I-10 westbound near downtown is finally cleared up. All westbound lanes are now back open near Brown past Cotton exit. Expect delays, now just a 10-minute delay. I-10 westbound at Piedras, a disabled vehicle blocking the left shoulder. A multi-vehicle accident from earlier, Joe Battle northbound at Montana Avenue. All those vehicles have moved to the right. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We have another mild night ahead of us as temperatures drop back to the lower to mid 70s overnight with light winds. But getting into the middle of the work week and on into the weekend, we can expect to have more triple-digit heat. There will be a slight cool down on Thursday as a little moisture tries to move back in. That will not only help to cool us off, but also could give us an isolated chance for some showers and storms.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
It's likely you've read some of the many Curious George books, but you might not know the story behind the couple who wrote them. You'll hear how these two authors escaped Nazi Germany. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Every child is different, and learning isn't always easy. But when you find the right teacher in the right school with the right curriculum, one day it just clicks. The right school for your child is out there, and the good news is it's only a click away. Texas Online Preparatory School is a tuition-free online school with state-licensed teachers that give students the personalized attention they need to succeed. K12.com/Texas Online, where education clicks.
History isn't always boring. In fact, sometimes it can be downright creepy. I'm Aaron Mahnke, the creator and host of Lore, a podcast that gives new life to the darkest stories from history. And this week, we're celebrating our 200th episode. Discover the legendary podcast that gave birth to a TV show and a book series and unlocked a love for the darker side of history in the hearts of millions of people around the world. Listen to Lore today on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 on News Radio 690 KTSM, breaking down the impact of the news on the borderland and beyond. Brought to you in part by Mission Del Rey Southwest, souvenirs, gifts, and decor. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Pool season is here, but open roles got you underwater? Check out Indeed. Their powerful hiring platform makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply. This report is sponsored by Indeed.com.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
You need to know what's going on.
News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show. Have that phone line open up a little bit later as we do. But, of course, a lot of comments coming in online, as we're also still, of course, joined here in studio by Robbie Gray, editor of El Paso Inc. Thanks for sticking around with us for another segment here.
Good to be here.
Absolutely glad to have you. Some of the questions coming in about things we were just talking about, among other things, some political commentary about some of the elected officials and their quality therein. But a specific question, Calvin Williams asking, why can't the intersections in El Paso just go straight across? And further on saying, it seems like 90% of them you have to make a half lane adjustment. Very case in point, not too far down the street from our offices here, the intersection of Mesa and Executive Center had that exact same problem, because it's technically 5 lanes, turn lanes on either side, but then it goes across into 4 lanes, so which is technically only a turn lane shoulder kind of thing. But yeah, it seems people would often drift a little bit. So I actually noticed yesterday on the way back that they had done some further in intersection striping to clarify that, because you're not the only one to experience a similar issue. And I know we've had comments come in here as well about these issues. So yeah, again, there's a lot to be talked about with roads and what the heck is going on with them. And that's just a small part of what's also going down. Something I wanted to ask and talk with you all about is a story you have about in relation to, again, Memorial Day having just passed, of course, that there's a story of, well, a notable El Paso one at the time. I remember this news story when it originally came by, Shoshana Johnson, during, again, the second Iraq war, of course, and being part of a convoy that got ambushed and being a POW.
Yeah, so people may remember this from 2003, but there is an El Paso native who now lives in LA, who's a filmmaker, and he is working to turn her story into a short film. Shoshana Johnson is the first Black female prisoner of war in U.S. history.
Yeah, and so that was quite the significant circumstance at the time. I remember a lot of people in town being worked up at that, even during my nascent political understanding at that point in time. So again, a good one that you all had right out in terms of Memorial Day. So again, be sure to check that out over on elpasoinc.com and subscribe there.
Yeah, because I think there's a temptation for us to think of Memorial Day as sort of a day for barbecues.
Oh, yeah.
So for Shoshana Johnson, there's a much deeper meaning to that. Because in terms of the convoy she was with, many of her fellow soldiers did not survive that, and she spent 22 days in captivity under very, very difficult conditions. So it should make for an interesting short film, and the filmmaker I know is trying to raise money for that project on GoFundMe.com.
So again, details on that story over at elpasoinc.com. But since we just have kind of a slightly connected theme going on with city council things, further downtown redevelopment is, of course, also coming on. And a lot of comments coming in on that as well. But that there's another downtown building that is going to be revitalized that has now been pursuing, well, it's incentives in order to facilitate the doing of it. We mentioned it a little bit, that 110-year-old downtown landmark that currently houses Cafe Central, that I did not realize actually had its own name, Texas Tower.
Yeah, so it seems like every time I come on the radio here for another month, there's yet another project to discuss in downtown. And this one is being led by Jim Scher, who's probably best known for his renovation of the building where the Doubletree Hotel now is in downtown, as well as the Marriott, a new structure that was built for that. And yeah, it's known as One Texas Tower. It's it's a visible tower in downtown, but it's easily overlooked because it's sort of wedged between the Plaza Hotel and the American Furniture Building in there, and it's easy to overlook. But I think most people know it as the location of Cafe Central.
I'm about to say, yeah, unless you're going to Cafe Central, there's not a whole lot else that's been going on with that building, frankly. So I wouldn't necessarily fault anyone for saying, Texas, what? We have a building called Texas Tower. I did not know the name of that building myself until this recent reporting came out.
The building is tired. It's mostly vacant, not entirely vacant, but mostly vacant.
Of course.
And the plan is to turn it into a 120-room Hampton Inn and Suites. It would be at least an $18 million investment.
Mm-hmm. And of course, there are incentives being considered from the city and the most likely the county, but it has come up before the city here already approving some of these kind of the packages that we have come to slightly expect when we're talking about these big downtown redevelopment, revitalization projects.
The city did approve that, and it was a package of tax breaks, that sort of thing. Basically, usually it's around 10 to 15 years of having your property taxes rebated in that sort of thing.
Yep. And so they can also then go for tax credits from other entities based on those kind of recognition. So it ends up becoming a whole package making it. But yeah, it was just interesting to me that it was that same about number that people may have been thinking about with the Crest redevelopment, about that roughly the same number in terms of the cost. They're about $18 million.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, renovating these buildings is very, very expensive. This one doesn't appear to be as in bad condition as some others in downtown that are just dilapidated. This one actually does have some tenants in there, as well as I believe Jim Scher's law offices are in there. So it is an active building, but it is tired and it does need renovated to become a hotel.
Yeah, and of course we've talked about more on that, and you all still have your crane watch going on there, and you'll keep looking at what is going on, what is being developed, because as that continues on, something that I definitely like talking about.
Yeah, if any of your listeners are driving around town right now and you see a crane or you see a large project going up and you wonder, what is that? You can go onto our website to Crane Watch and you can see if we've listed it in our Crane Watch, or you're welcome to email us or submit through inquiries any questions as to what is that project, and we will track it down.
Actually, interesting question coming in right now. John Brazelton asking who stays in all these downtown hotels except out-of-towners during the Sun Bowl, because really the problem before this point has been there wasn't enough downtown space when we had major things come in like the National Bowling Competition that I know is a specific name that eludes me at the second, but that had thousands of people literally coming in, transiting in and out. There was only really one or two like downtown hotels, and they were having to then fan out across the rest of the city. So really that's been somewhat of an impediment of having not enough downtown hotels previously. So this is kind of with an eye towards dealing with that, because we do have major conventions coming in. The Texas Democrats comes to mind here. Just announced actually, I think recently, was what's going on with some like Texas police games, expected to bring 1,000 of people. That's more towards like the Spaghetti Bowl area, but still having people in specifically downtown areas and making that more viable for conventions, giving them an all-in-one solution is kind of part of the idea here.
That is a great question, because we have seen a spate of hotels open in downtown, and even right in that exact area. You have the Hotel Paso del Norte, you have the Plaza Hotel, and now you'll have this Hampton Inn. There's the Marriott, there's the Doubletree. There's many of them, and I actually put the question to Jim Scher, because when you're investing in a project like this, you don't typically do it unless you can make a business case for it. And the long time sort of argument for this is there just have not been enough hotel rooms in downtown for conventions. And particularly before the Hotel Paso del Norte was renovated, the Camino Hotel had all sorts of problems there. And it's been a long time wish of the city, for the Convention and Visitors Bureau, Destination El Paso, to see high quality hotel rooms in downtown. So we haven't, I think we're getting pretty close. I don't remember what the number is. There was a certain number of hotel rooms they had put on sort of their wish list for downtown conventions, and we're getting close to that. But Jim Scher seemed confident that there would be plenty of people to fill his hotel, and his Marriott and Doubletree have been quite successful since they opened.
Yeah, and I want to say specifically that what got redeveloped into the Doubletree, that used to be, was it the International Hotel?
Well, you're going back before I arrived here in El Paso, but I think it was the old International Hotel, and it was a real eyesore off of I-10, and that was really one of the first major renovation projects in downtown.
Yeah, so if you want to kind of track it back, that could be argued as one of the kicking off points here. And so speaking about redevelopment and use of space, there's one other story that had actually come up. Our audience was interested in it as a school closed. What happens to the property from the last time we talked here? Because that's been an interesting question, because there's been a lot of movement with those levels of, serious amounts of both some vacant, but mostly older, smaller schools, elementary schools, etc. Specifically, Orrin Roberts and Alta Vista mentioned there in the story. And I think the short answer to that question is not much.
Yeah, that's right. So the 2016 bond program led to the consolidation of a number of schools and the essentially a closing or shuttering of many schools. So the EPISD board added Bassett and Bonham and Clardy and Crosby and Moorhead and Mitzi Bond to the list of surplus properties. So neighbors, of course, are wondering what is going to happen to this property in my neighborhood. And the short answer of that is there is no long-term plan.
All right, so something we'll have to keep our eye on there, but we're about out of time here. So again, been joining us here in studio is Robbie Gray, editor of El Paso Inc., joining us as we do most first Tuesdays of the month to talk about some of the big stories, some of the big issues, and of course, their ongoing reporting. And of course, people can subscribe themselves, elpasoinc.com, and have the online subscription and see all the stories there and still get them delivered right to their house.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely glad to have you here. So we're going to take us through that next break right now. And as we do usually at this point during the show, we will open up that phone line. So that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. A lot more to talk about, and we'll continue getting into it after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Good news on the I-10 westbound. That earlier crash that was causing the large backup is over. All lanes back open I-10 westbound after Cotton, that earlier accident. 54 Patriot southbound at Ellerthorpe Avenue. 2 SUVs off to the left, blocking the left shoulder. Disabled vehicle blocking the right shoulder, I-10 westbound at Lee Trevino. And an injury accident, Piedras, north of Pershing. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
After having children of their own, one couple decided to adopt 6 more. Hear the story of how their family became the size of a baseball team. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter.com/radio.
As the country bounces back from COVID and mask mandates are lifted, your business needs a lift too. Promote your company right here, right now. Radio ads connect with 93% of Americans every week. That's more than Google, more than Facebook, more than TV. In fact, radio reaches 20% more millennials than TV. Want more of the people you want to talk to all in one place? Visit iHeartAdvertising.com and get AM and FM working for you. That's iHeartAdvertising.com.
Don't drive much, don't pay much with pay-per-mile insurance from Allstate. Life is good when you're in the driver's seat. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working.
Who, me?
text and whatever, just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. Keeping you informed and up to date. El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Going to plug at this moment that you should also consider, well, tuning in and also leaving your commentary through the iHeartRadio app, because, of course, we have that giveaway going on, $100 gift card for hair and beard services, really whatever you want, over with our official hair and beard sponsors of the show, Gentleman's Republic. Think of it as a perfect Father's Day gift. In fact, that's why we're calling it the Father's Day All-In Giveaway, because you can get the services you want, experience what I talk about a lot here, and, well, find out myself and seek out a lot of times myself here. So, of course, make sure you're leaving those comments, because each week we'll be entered into a drawing just by leaving your commentary through that app. So I've got the picture up here right now. This is what happens when you search up the News Radio 690 KTSM. You can look up any radio station more or less in the country, even, let's just say, some competition. But if you want to find us on iHeartRadio and the app, that's the way you do it. Just download the iHeartRadio app through your favorites, well, whatever your app store is, Google, Android, etc., and then just look for us, search up the station like you normally would online, and you'll find us, and then just hit that little red microphone button, and you can, of course, be entered to win. So we'll do that each week here. If we don't have a winner one week, we will roll it over, because I know this is a little bit new, but hey, I think it's one of the better ways to interact with the program, and I know people like that voice as well, so strongly encouraged here, and even have an example of how simple it is. So I was on this page myself, and I left a message a little bit earlier, and if you're curious about how it works, I just left that message. You can review it afterwards. Give you about 30 seconds, and it works a little bit like this. Hey, this is Andrew J. Polk leaving a message through the Talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app. I just went to the News Radio 690 KTSM page in the app, hit that little red microphone button, and left the message just like this. So it's easy, it's simple, and you'll be entered to win in the Father's Day giveaway $100 gift card to Gentleman's Republic Barber Salon and Men's Spa. So that's one way you can do it in between shows. So anytime you got a spare thought response, that's a good way to do it. But of course, we do have those phone lines open right now as well. The number to call there, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Want to address a couple of comments before we hit those phone lines again right here. A lot of people chiming in on all of this. A lot of the roadway issues going on here, and also just want to mention a couple of them talking about it here, what is going on with Shoshana Johnson. Calvin Williams saying recovered the dispatch book from the Jessica Lynch convoy, and Flaco Jimenez saying specifically went to junior and high school with Shoshana and occasionally run into her. She's a great person and really deserves the recognition. I mean, it's a pretty impressive story. I remember almost wrote an op-ed back in I think it was in middle school at that point, to seriously date myself. So yeah, it's quite the story, and glad that it is coming out here as well. And a lot of other commentary on what's going on, including what the news conference and bit from McConaughey was today. Yeah, we mentioned that as well. And then John Brazelton question. A few others talking about staying in town. Calvin Williams saying Airbnbs are the way to go. And Flaco Menace I think lately there has been more staycationers. And Maria Coleman addressing kind of similar to what Brazelton was saying. Who stays in these hotels when there are no major events, possibly contracting with the feds to house illegal migrants? I mean, yes, that certainly has happened in town, but I'm not exactly thinking these facilities. I mean, we're talking about some of the top tier in town, or at least slated to be with the reconstruction we're talking about here. So, I mean, there is enough people coming in and out. I mean, it may not seem like there's totally huge things going on in downtown, but that's also, I think, part of the problem is that there has previously not been this capacity of, again, top tier for town kind of, well, temporary housing. So that makes some sense, but I think that more overall, they're in it for the money, and I don't think they'll be taking a base government rate for the rooms in the way they're putting into it, is my expectation anyway. But again, back with that phone line now, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We have a call on the line here right now. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Tony Westside.
Hey there, Tony. What's on your mind?
Robbie, you from the Inc. who was on the air.
Mm-hmm.
Donovan, listen carefully, Robbie. Donovan was a 60s folk singer, rock star, Bob Dylan style. Donna Fun, Robbie, is a highly decorated military person after whose name the street comes from. So, Robbie, we would appreciate a little bit of respect for our military people, Robbie, with the Inc. Item number 2. Item number 2. What is item number 2? I wanted to talk about the street between Schuster Street between Mesa and I-10. It is in horrible condition, Robbie. If you want to do a report and if you want to prove that you don't work for the Democrat propaganda machine, talk about 2,000 mules, Robbie.
Oh, okay, well, we lost Tony there. All right, well, thank you for the point in the call here. I mean, kind of, I guess, there's a similar point that we take on that point here is, not out to prove anything to anyone besides talking about the local things. So as much as these issues come up locally, we'll certainly get into it. But to my understanding, from not being able to fully see that video for whatever reason, I've tried on a couple of occasions. I just don't think it's gone through when I've tried to see it. Not sure what exactly the local impact is here, but as more comes up, happy to talk about it, of course, here. But I would approve the slip of there. I think it was, we all got the idea of what he was talking about. And yes, of course, Donovan is a significant street in town, and Donovan, I actually didn't know the one you're talking about there being a 60s singer here, but I think we can, at least I will definitely not going to be called a hypocrite by not allowing a slip up or two from time to time here. So that's going to take us more or less through the next break of the hour here right now. We will, of course, take more calls on the line if you are wanting to call in. If you're calling in towards a bit of a break, just make sure to stay on the line here for just a bit because we will certainly get back to your call. And that number to do so is 915-544-5876-544 KTSM. Flock Jimenez, I think, calling out one of those songs from Donovan there, Sunshine Superman. I'll take your word for it. I am just not familiar. I will be perfectly honest with you. But we'll talk a lot more about this and all the other things going on in the second hour of Talk El Paso after this brief break at the top of the hour with the news. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am, of course, your host, Andrew J. Polk. We got a lot of commentary and a lot of ways going on here. Just one more quick plug. Make sure to leave your comments over on the Talk El Paso page on the, News Radio 690 page, rather, on the iHeartRadio app, so you can be entered to win that Father's Day giveaway with Gentleman's Republic Barber Salon. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM, 915-544-5876. See you after the break.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound after Reynolds. Looks like an accident is slowing traffic. Expect delays. Gateway Boulevard westbound at Airway, an accident reported. Multi-vehicle accident in the clearing stages. 3 vehicles are off to the right, blocking the right shoulder. Joe Battle northbound at Montana. And an injury accident, Piedras, north of Pershing Drive at Grant Road. Take Yandell as an alternate. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Maybe you've had to put off a health appointment or two during the COVID-19 pandemic. But if you're 45 or older, there's one test you shouldn't put off any longer. Regular screening for colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is a leading cancer killer, but it can be prevented with regular screening starting at 45. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. It takes guts to put your health first. Ask your doctor about your options today. Visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
Rich is just a really, really, really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich, no. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Not on my watch, our military service members say, as they volunteer to serve, as they move out, stand firm, and take fire. So not on our watch, we say, to the severely ill or injured veterans who can't get the care they deserve to live full and independent lives, even when there's no government funding or a nursing home seems like the only option. We won't leave one warrior behind. Not on our watch. Join us at findwwp.org.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod, noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
The most current and comprehensive. Just minutes away at the top and bottom of the hour. News
and
on
always
the hour
online.
And a half. Traffic and weather all day.
KTSM
News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Oscar-winning actor Matthew McConaughey is making a strong pitch for new gun safety regulations after the deadly mass shooting in his hometown of Uvalde, Texas.
We are in a window of opportunity right now that we have not been in before. A window where it seems like real change can happen.
McConaughey met with President Biden at the White House and then told reporters this time it seems something is different. McConaughey grew emotional talking about the 19 students and 2 teachers who were shot dead at an elementary school in Uvalde. He noted he's been a gun owner most of his life and has always been aware of the awesome power of firearms. A new COVID vaccine for adults is closer to FDA authorization after a panel of independent experts voted unanimously to recommend it. The agency could clear Novavax's 2-dose shot as early as this week. Stocks are closing higher on Wall Street. All 3 major indexes rose sharply after trading in the red following Target's profit warning. Investors shook off recession fears and stocks turned positive in choppy trading. At the closing bell, the Dow Jones gained 264 points to 33,180. The S&P 500 added 39 points to 4160. A Capitol police officer injured during last year's attack on the building is set to testify on Thursday. Lisa Taylor reports.
NBC News reports Caroline Edwards will go in front of the cameras when the committee investigating the attack holds a primetime hearing. She suffered a concussion as a result of what happened on January 6, 2021. One of the people charged with attacking her is awaiting trial. I'm Lisa Taylor.
Bob Saget is going to be honored with an Impact Award at this year's Critics' Choice Real TV Award show. The Critics' Choice Association announced they'll be honoring the late Full House actor for his achievements in the television industry. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Reports say then-President Trump's re-election campaign told fake electors in Georgia to run their plan in complete secrecy. Matt McClure reports.
The Trump campaign's Georgia operations director, Robert Sinner, sent an email on December 13, 2020. It told fake electors their efforts to secure a win for Trump, quote, will be hampered unless we have complete secrecy and discretion. Trump lost Georgia to then-Democratic candidate Joe Biden by nearly 12,000 votes.
A top American diplomat is warning North Korea of the consequences it would face if it conducts a nuclear test. Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman visited South Korea and said such a test would bring a swift and forceful response. The NYPD is honoring dozens of members and their sacrifices during its annual Medal Day ceremony. Natalie Migliori has more.
A retired transit officer himself, Mayor Eric Adams, says it's not just NYPD members who serve New York City, but their families.
Mom did those 22 years with me, never able to go to sleep until she heard from me and said, Mom, I'm home.
The highest Medal of Honor was posthumously awarded to Detective Anastasio Sakos, who was struck by a drunk driver last April. Another was presented to police officer Dalsh Veve, who was dragged by a vehicle back in 2017. The department also recognized 15 units along with 34 first responders who died from long-term related 9/11 illnesses.
The age limit for international figure skating is being raised from 15 to 17. The International Skating Union voted on the rule change in Thailand, citing the physical and mental health as well as emotional well-being of skaters. This comes after a doping scandal at the Beijing Winter Olympics involving a 15-year-old Russian skater. The change will be gradual, resulting in no change for the 2022-23 season, but skaters will need to be 16 in the 2023-24 season. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now, your chance at a trip to our 2022 iHeartRadio Music Festival. Text the nationwide keyword music to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's music to 200-200.
Our 2022 iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Friday, September 23rd and Saturday, September 24th.
T-Mobile Arena here in Las Vegas.
Keep listening to win your way there before you can even buy tickets.
On sale Friday, June 17th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific.
But starting June 15th at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, Capital One cardholders can score tickets and other awesome experiences before anyone else for 48 hours only or while supplies last. Visit iHeartRadio.com/Capital One for more pre-sale details. What's in your wallet?
This report is sponsored by Dell Technologies.
Dell Technologies and Windows 11 provide innovators with the tools to succeed. To do more with the Latitude laptop, Dell Technologies recommends Windows 11 Pro for Business. For advice and expertise, call a Dell Technologies advisor at 877-ASK-DELL.
iHeartRadio Earth is here with little tips for a healthier planet. A staggering 8 million tons of plastic ends up in the world's oceans every year. If current trends continue, our oceans could contain more plastic than fish by 2050. Do your part. Purchase items made from renewable or recycled content and recycle whenever possible. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Stay tuned and stay informed with News Radio 690, KTSM, an iHeart radio station.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone?
Do flowers have best friends?
I don't know. Hey, look.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for joining in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways you can get at us. Also got that phone line open right now. Of course, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. So if you wanted to get at us, you can do there. Also, just as a so gentle reminder, those got that talkback feature in the iHeartRadio app. So if you leave us a message during the show, even through that way, we might even be able to play it during the show. Can't guarantee it here, but if you really wanted to get in and get a comment in, try it. And also, of course, you'll be entered to win the Father's Day giveaway brought to you in part by, of course, Gentleman's Republic Barber Salon and Men's Spa and News Radio 690 KTSM. $100 gift card for any services you want there. Really, definitely enough for their expert hair and beard styling, and we'll get a lot more into that here. Just, again, go to the iHeartRadio app, leave your message through there, and you will be entered to win in our selection drawing each week. So, a lot of things going on. A lot of comments going on in a lot of ways. I know there's been a lot of commentary about the McConaughey statements made from the White House, of course, as was brought up a little bit earlier this, in fact, at the top of the hour news there, if I'm not mistaken. So some things being brought up there. Kathy Kodry bringing up right now some of the comments about a 15,000 caravan headed to the U.S. border ASAP. Heard it's closer to 10, but again, it's an estimated kind of thing here, so that might not be out of bounds anyway. And yeah, having crossed the border from Guatemala recently, again, it's a little bit hard to pin down these things exactly, but yeah, it could potentially. I'd be surprised if it comes exactly to this area, because these things usually don't. It's quite a long trek that way, but further pressure going on with all of that here. RJ saying, used to stop for a few things, 20 or 30 bucks, now it's 40 or 50. Yeah, let's just say I'm happy in a lot of ways to have have some full freezers and pantry space. I've been telling you for a minute that, yeah, stocking up is not a totally bad idea at any point here. Kevin Williams saying comments aren't updating for him. Seem to still be coming in for me, so if you're having any issues, just try closing out, restarting. Digital percussive maintenance, as I put it here, but otherwise we'll, of course, be continuing the show. And we've got more comments coming out today. Monica Cervantes saying that it's going right there. So, yeah, just turn it off and turn it on again, I know is a very basic bit of advice, but hey, if it's not cooperating for you, just try that out there. But some more of the comments that I didn't get to before this, John Browson saying, we don't want illegals standing around in our streets, very un-American, which is why I think that having local response formulated to it, it was that recent release that happened that was based on, well, among other things, lack of capacity going on. So that's why that county contract is of interest, and why I'll keep keeping an eye on that myself here, because them not having local capacity to deal with it is what, well, essentially makes that happen, as did happen back in, I want to say that was 2019 or maybe a little bit earlier, during the Trump administration anyway. There was a similar type of release on more or less the same order of magnitude, if I am remembering it, of course, here. But then a lot of commentary coming in on the, well, politicians' local situations here, and a lot of it. But Catherine Coder bringing up a little bit earlier, the White House conference with Matt McConaughey, calling it political theatrics in her words, and how dare this administration use children to chip away at the Second Amendment. Shameful and political theatrics, she clarified. And Calvin Williams also asking a little bit earlier on the intersections that he was asking about. Did the city manager approve those intersections? I think Flaco Jimenez is the one who said that, at least when it comes to Mesa, that is a state-maintained area. Technically, yes, it is a state highway, but yeah, it's got issues. There's no roadway in El Paso that I'm like 100% chef's kiss ready to go, because yeah, it's got a lot of problems with it here. So that's just a little bit of what's going on and swirling around, of course, on the area. And just as a ever so gentle reminder for any of our listeners in the Doña Ana County area, or New Mexico, land of enchantment in general, you've got a primary election going on today. I will freely admit we have been maybe a little bit remiss to focus on that point here, on what goes on there, because, well, Talk El Paso means we usually focus on El Paso, but I don't want you to forget, you've got until 7 p.m. to head out and vote, and make sure you do so a lot, and I do mean a lot, of important elections getting set up on the ballot right now. So make sure you go out and do your civic duty and vote here. One other thing I want to mention in terms of redevelopment going on is that there are going to be new flooding maps coming out of the area, according to our news partners over on KFOX 14, meeting on Wednesday, coming up on that, because of course we are not total strangers to major flooding events that have happened in and around the region. But again, flood mitigation projects, strategies, and priorities will be included in the 2023 state flood plan. We'll be getting talked about coming up this Wednesday. The Upper Rio Grande Regional Flood Planning Group will be holding that meeting. And if you want to be a part of it here, again, make sure to go and find them. EPISD Administration Building, 1014 North Stanton, from 5 to 8 p.m. is where you can go and find that. But let's go back to those phone lines right now. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876. 544 KTSM, the number to call there. Do have a call on the line here right now. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Hey, Andrew, this is Raul.
Hey there, Raul. What's on your mind?
I was watching a domestic terrorism expert, Professor Robert Papp, the University of Chicago, giving testimony to the Congress, saying that there now exists a deadly confluence of millions of weapons of mass destruction in the hands of millions of Americans steeped in violent insurrectionist rhetoric. Now he said that legislative logjams have prevented solutions to the problems facing fueling this radicalism, and that the increase in mass killings are going to increase, and that the nation should prepare itself for more of these violent incidents. He said there's somewhere between 18 to 21 million Americans who have insurrectionist sentiments. And he said that 40% of them cite Fox and Newsmax as their major news sources. Now, undoubtedly, national politics, what happens in Washington, D.C., who is the president of the United States, all greatly affect El Paso. And what has happened in the past affects the present and the future. Now, the day after tomorrow will be a historic day. What will happen Thursday evening is as unprecedented as a two-time impeached president who was impeached for planning and inciting a coup against the Constitution and Congress at the Capitol on January 6th. Another day that will live in infamy. And soon the world will be able to see and hear the testimony of the witnesses to Trump's coup. But sadly, again, we can see the denialism of reality of the Republican Party and their propaganda channel, Fox Noise, which won't be covering the hearings. Now, Fox Noise's Australian owner, Rupert Murdoch, knows that his audience doesn't want to see that on their favorite right-wing Trump Putin propaganda TV station. But I'll tell you what, I'm really looking forward to these hearings because I want to know the truth, see and hear the facts and the evidence. And Speaker Pelosi is making sure that the American people have the opportunity to learn the facts, see and hear the evidence of Trump's attempt to take democracy out and cancel the will of the people by taking her out along with Vice President Pence and other prominent Democratic congresspersons. And I wonder how many of your audience plans to see and listen to the hearings. Now, my guess is most of them won't. They like being in their right-wing propagandist bubble. They can't handle the cognitive dissonance and the truth. They can't handle the criticism of their chosen one, the Orange Oak, the Messiah of manure, mendacity, and maliciousness. But I want to ask you a question. Do you plan to watch the hearings, Andrew?
Plan to watch them in part here, but let me put a question back to you, actually, that if there were to be, let's say, political advantage gained through these hearings, particularly on the part of Nancy Pelosi you're bringing up there, would you expect her to say, no, that should not be a part of this, I will step away and now allow it to be a part of this? Or do you expect that there will be ever so possibly, ever so slightly, a bit of political advantage explored through the process of these hearings?
Of course there's political advantage. This is all about politics and power and the quest for ever more power through politics and money. So, duh. Now, I want to ask you a question. Why do you think most of those who do not plan to see and hear this big history in the making won't be watching?
I think more or less exactly the point we just discussed there, that as an investigation, again, I've been very open with my calls for an investigation into all of these things, but this I see as less of an investigation, more, well, as you literally just put it, political basis, and I'm going to go further and say political grandstanding, and I think a whole lot of goals for, well, frankly, the November election are going to be pumped into this. So I don't have a lot of confidence that clarity will be achieved through this. I think that, yes, there will be, I think you said that, politics will be a part of it. I think it'll be more than a little bit of a part of it. The idea of essentially, well, using a bully pulpit in this case in order to beat up on the party that is currently out of power, because there is, I think, still a lot of analysis pointing to perhaps a return to power unless there is a real turnabout in both circumstances, events, and the economy. And I think that really the major problem is if this is being seen as a substitute for dealing with any of those other issues, that probably this November might be even more of a culling than it already is when it comes to who was represented on the political rolls and which number, or rather, which letter representing the party goes next to them. Because seriously, if this is the replacement as opposed to policy, as opposed to dealing with situations as they are, yes, January 6th was a very significant date. But to say that that overwhelms literally everything else, I mean, we've had this argument before about the idea that Pearl Harbor was a less significant event than this, which just does not fly in my mind. Even September 11th was a arguably more a significant event, even if in a different way, again, external versus internal. And if we're really just brass tacks here, talking about the idea of a coup being in place, let's talk about one of the least effective ones ever planned. I mean, they didn't even remember to bring guns with them in this case. So in your analysis about the idea of extant weapons essentially being fomenting, I guess, a future civil war or overthrow of power, I mean, we're almost getting into more or less like, I don't know, what comes to mind, I guess, is the Brave New World 1984, or I guess more specifically, Handmaid's Tale kind of scenarios is what it seems like you're really trying to get at there, the idea that this will be this forced takeover. And yeah, security concerns certainly abound for me when it comes out of what the heck happened on January 6th, but I don't feel like those will be the primary points of even this. I mean, I would even settle for a who knew what, when, and how, and what do they do with it kind of scenario. But again, I think there's a little bit more than a dubious question in mind of if that will actually be achieved through these. So yeah, I am not often glued to the national tube here when we talk about a lot of things, usually breaking down what it means for us here in El Paso. So I'll be paying attention in that form, as I often do. But no, we certainly trust our further national news partners and even other hosts on the station to deal with those subjects as they come up here. So thank you for the point in the call. I will agree with you on that one point that this will be significant, but I think we're disagreeing on what exactly that significance will be. So we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we got more calls on the line, and we'll certainly get to them. So if you're on the line, stay there. Otherwise, if you want to call in or leave your comment, of course, the number to do so, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Comments over on the Facebook page as well. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Got reports of a crash on the I-10 eastbound after Reynolds. Expect delays. I-10 eastbound between Piedras and Patriot. It's about a 10-minute delay right now. Gateway Boulevard westbound at Airway, an accident reported. Stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. I-10 eastbound at Dallas downtown and Piedras north of Pershing, an injury accident. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
After having children of their own, one couple decided to adopt 6 more. Hear the story of how their family became the size of a baseball team. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, it's Mario Courtney Lopez, and we know life is better together.
Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to make life's moments amazing.
We are all getting together more, and Smart Mouth's 24-hour power of fresh breath with just 2 rinses a day keeps us from worrying about bad breath in those up-close moments.
Go to smartmouth.com/radio to save 20% or find Smart Mouth at your favorite store to give you confidence as we get closer to each other.
Remember to make life's moments better together with Smart Mouth at smartmouth.com/.
GDIT is hiring bilingual English-Spanish customer service representatives. Join us for a virtual career fair on June 8th to learn how you can impact the safety and security of our nation with GDIT. $500 sign-on bonus available for select positions. Register and apply at gdit.com/El Paso. That's gdit.com/El Paso.
Blue Star medicated ointment works fast to relieve the pain and itch of almost any skin irritation.
It's amazing. It's like as soon as you put it on, you can feel it working. We've had Blue Star in the family for years. It works on everything.
I love the cooling sensation on my athlete's foot.
What a relief for my eczema.
Nothing worked on my dry, cracked skin until I tried Blue Star.
Blue Star is great for scalp itch.
Look for the white box with the Blue Star in the first aid section. Feel Blue Star work fast or your money back.
When you need your tech working its best, Staples has you covered.
My PC has 3 speeds: slow, slower, and slowest.
Staples has you covered during our free PC tune-up event, Saturday the 18th and Sunday the 19th. Bring your existing PC to any Staples store and we'll remove junk files, improve your startup and operating speeds, and optimize your device's performance with a 1-year subscription for PC tune-up software. A $30 value free. Your tech solution is at Staples. In-store only, Windows devices only. Appointments encouraged by phone or in-store.
Children who grow up in poverty are part of a destructive cycle. At Child Fund International, we find this unacceptable. In 25 countries, we are vigorously fighting poverty and improving the lives of children and their families. Learn more at childfund.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch.tv. Find us either under Andrew J. Polk or Talk El Paso on most of those platforms here. And you can leave us messages, as a lot of people are. So it seems like they are back up. If anyone was having concern about that, Flacometa saying in regards to the January 6th committee, they have nothing else, same as when they constantly bring up the race card. I mean, I guess I feel like from other political party, if we're bringing up platitudes saying, oh, you're not allowed to talk about that, or this is bad, or this is a problem that we need to investigate, and maybe not actually do anything about policy. There's a reason we focus on policy whenever we talk with our local elected officials here on this program, because what are you actually doing is a lot more important than what are you talking about. It seems a little bit ironic for a talk radio show to say that, but seriously, we need to hold elected officials accountable and getting them on record about what they actually plan to do, and then comparing that with what they actually end up doing, ever so slightly important. Catherine Coterie saying, praying for ET to show up soon, and RJ saying right back, careful what you wish for. Yeah, I would think that applies in this case. So Yeah, a lot of comments coming in here on a lot of these subjects here. A lot of people leaving their 2 cents. Raul Francisco Amaya, Flaco Jimenez, Ian Grimm, Maria Coleman, John Brazelton, RJ Cathicoudry as well, John Hertz, Calvin Williams, and Fred Marquez, and a whole lot more. Comment at Robbie Flores as well. And of course, dropping those likes over on the page, we do appreciate. Calvin Williams, Monica Cervantes, Robbie Flores, and Flaco Jimenez. Do appreciate all of that. But of course, we got those phone lines open right now. That number to call in there, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We have Jerry on northwest side of town here calling in right now. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
I find it very strange that they're going to put on this primetime show, orchestrated thing, when they're looking for charges to be made against Donald Trump and his people, okay? But yet they're not going to take it to the DOJ, but they're going to put it on public display and show all their cards before they take it to any DOJ or place where they can process it and have it put into charges against breaking the law. So why are they doing that? I think they're trying to win over the populace and make this into a prime time scandal, right? Which it already is. But it was not. They have no other course to go through because they're not proving that Donald Trump did anything wrong. In fact, if they listened and if Raul would have listened to Sean Hannity today, he explained that Nancy Pelosi refused to answer letters and requests to activate the National Guard, being Nancy Pelosi is responsible for the safety and security of the Capitol building. It has to go through her and the mayor to get the National Guard in there and take care of business. Donald Trump had, I believe it was 20,000 National Guard troops ready to go. He signed the thing that said for it to go, but they didn't take it and run with it to protect the Capitol. I have a question for you, Andrew.
Sure.
Okay. Since it's so hot and it's being blamed El Nino in the Pacific, do you think if we called El Nino, that it would change into a better, cooler, wetter time?
I mean, if you're talking about the differences, El Nino and La Nina, I mean, yeah, they do have their different impacts here. I didn't think that human labels have much to do with natural phenomenon, though.
Well, I'm just wondering, they can change the names of people and have them change their sex and do swimming and win and stuff like that when they're male and not female. So I'm just, that might be a different subject, though. Anyway, thank you for taking my call.
Sure thing. Thanks for the point in the call there. I mean, I'll stand by my statement there that human labels for otherwise naturally occurring phenomenon doesn't usually have much of an impact on the phenomenon, only our conception of it. So sure, call it whatever you want. Call it La Bruja. It's still going to be what it is, and we're still probably going to be having this very hot summer there. So appreciate the point there. I guess I will say to your other point, I think we lost you there, that the idea of, well, essentially this political, I mean, there's a reason I asked that question. I'd like to think sometimes that I have a point or an overarching idea in mind that we investigate it better than not. So that may be more of a foible on my part than anything. But seriously, I think that these committees and the way it's going to be put forth is inherently political. There's a reason I asked that, because sure, there might be some probative value that maybe squeaks in there, but I think otherwise, I think a lot of election hopes are getting hung on this whole event. There's been only one time that at least I've been personally involved with that I've seen there have been a specific broadcast purpose considered when it comes to committees. I've been in a few myself, not exactly to any great extent of what's happened, particularly the last decade, but happened to be on Capitol Hill when there was the Colbert hearings. Actually, it was before one of the House committees on things like labor service, those kind of things, and involving discussion of apple pickers specifically, was one of the people appearing alongside Stephen Colbert at that point. And just on a technical note, probably outside the most of the norm here, but so in the way that committee rooms are set up, you have the dais where the elected officials sit, either congressmen or senators, what have you, and then you have the actual hearing table that they usually lower than that because, of course, the way they are set up, that the people being either investigated, interrogated, interviewed, however that particular circumstance is, are sitting there, and in between there is called the well, and that's where you usually see camera people, reporters sitting, taking pictures, that kind of a thing, which is actually one of the reasons that I can technically say I've been on, I made my national debut on The Daily Show because I happened to be taking pictures in the well there as Colbert was doing that, and it didn't end up airing on the Colbert Report at that point in time, ended up only being on The Daily Show, so you can see 2 seconds of me with my face entirely obscured by a camera. If you know where to look, I will totally point it out to you. Anyway, a point aside is that the requirements of being in there are very strict, but there happened to be a couple of cameras, like remote control cameras, in that hearing that day, and a lot of people, longtime DC journalists I knew at that point, commenting, what the heck are these cameras doing here? That is usually not at all allowed, only credentialed photography. I was credentialed daily media at that point in time, and I got kicked out of there after a while because only photographers were credentialed to be in there. So yeah, it's a weird circumstance that they've put together this media frenzy around this hearing here. So the more you focus on, let's just say, the coverage of a thing, the less I wonder and assume that you're going to be focused on the actual value of the information coming out of it. Because let's just say if there were still being investigation part of it as opposed to foregone conclusions, I don't think they'd be as advanced in trying to put it out there as something that we definitely want you to see. So yeah, I think the political purpose here is paramount. Don't even feel like that's a controversial statement in any way, shape, or form here. But let's go back to those phone lines here again real quick. Number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Do we have Stephen on the east side here with us right now? Stephen, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew.
Hey there, what's on your mind?
So I think I can answer a couple of Raul's questions.
Okay.
Why maybe Republicans or a lot of people are skeptical about some of these claims that are made by Democrats. Because we've seen, definitely in my lifetime, the Democrats try to sell a lot of snake oil. I mean, I remember when Mitt Romney was running for president, Joe Biden was saying things like, to his black audience at the time, he was saying that Mitt Romney was going to put y'all back in chains. And essentially, Mitt Romney was going to enslave black people again. It's just complete nonsense. And then, of course, with Donald Trump, the Russia collusion narrative, which they knew early on in the intelligence services that the Steele dossier was baseless, unverified, and yet that was still used in these circles between the Democrats, Clinton's campaign, some lawyers, and people within the FBI and these different organizations kind of colluded together to come up with this narrative so that they could spy on Donald Trump's campaign. And it was clear very on, now that the evidence is coming out, that they knew that it was bogus, but they were still willing to do that and prolong the Mueller investigation all the way through the midterm elections to try to influence the midterm elections when Donald Trump was president. So they are really willing to be conniving and manipulative. And so a lot of people see this January 6th investigation as something, just another version of these investigations that are manipulating a lot of the population who's too naive to see that the media is and the Democrats are kind of working together to influence their opinions and their votes. So that's a lot of the reason why people are skeptical about this one-sided supposed investigation by the Democrats. And they are willing to pull a lot of things. I mean, I remember the Kavanaugh hearings and everything when they were having multiple women and a lot of them were completely discredited. Their most, star witness was Blasey Ford, who had a memory that she says where Kavanaugh attacked her. None of the people who she claimed were at the party remembered any such gathering. They said there was no music downstairs, and yet all this ruckus was going on upstairs. And she and Kavanaugh were missing for a period of time. None of the people noticed. No one heard any ruckus. No one even remembers there ever even being an incident like that. Yet that was paraded in front of the American public to try to keep Kavanaugh off the court. So they're willing to do a lot of crazy things in order to try to manipulate the public. And just like the previous caller said, I mean, Donald Trump said, hey, I will provide 20,000 troops of security. And a lot of people like me, not really particularly a Trump fan, I didn't vote for him in the primaries, but we wanted that vote and everything to go forward, because that was when a lot of Republicans were going to express their concerns about the election, about not having the signature verification the way it's supposed to be, not having witnesses for the mail-in ballots. And there were a lot of things that were very suspicious. And that was the time that the Republicans were going to open up the case to the American people that should be fully investigated. And when the January 6th thing was allowed to happen due to lack of security, that overrid the ability from a political standpoint for the Republicans to push that issue, because by doing so, they were going to be seen as part of this kind of insurrection. So those investigations were never properly held because the Democrats were able to hold January 6th over the Republicans and kind of skate past that issue. And there were some issues, and there's old folks' homes that previously didn't have high voter turnouts, and suddenly those old folks' homes had 100% turnout. And some of the families were concerned. They say, well, my parent has complete dementia. I don't know how they could have possibly voted and known what they were voting for, because they have dementia and their mail-in ballot was set in. There's lots of things like that. I don't know if you've heard of Dinesh D'Souza's 2,000 Mules, where
yes, it's been brought up. Absolutely.
Cell phone tracking to detect where these ballot harvesters were going from place to place, gathering up all of these ballots. That it's basically illegal. And there were illegal things done by the executive branches of certain states where voter rules were changed when that should be done by the legislature. None of those things were addressed because January 6th overtook the narrative, and a lot of Republicans didn't like that January 6th happened either. And so they weren't willing to push those investigations because it looks bad. It looks like you were trying to incite rebellion by wanting to look into the election. So that's how they're using it. Raul knows it. Or at least he'll speak his platitudes. Maybe he doesn't listen to anybody else. I think it's funny that he doesn't listen to anybody else, and he accuses other people of the exact same thing he's doing in terms of the propaganda and the bubbles and circles that he trolls around on the internet with. So that's my comment. Sorry to be long-winded, but I have a lot to say today.
No, fair enough here. I mean, we do take the comments that we do, get a little bit far afield there, but I mean, some of the major things when we're talking about these committees, I mean, I know we try to keep it as local as much as possible, but I think as we get closer to Thursday that it's going to be impossible to ignore, and just the fervor around it. Again, we do fully trust our other hosts on this station to do a very good job with some of these more national and less able to be drawn down to local issue politics, but there's also certain elephants in the room we cannot ignore, as we've often gone to. So I'm sure it'll come up here. Yeah, the commentary specifically about, some of the laws that were changed or their interpretations changed right ahead of the election without legislative input. I think those are some of the most significant avenues of investigations should have been done that I will agree kind of fell to the wayside by a lot here. And yeah, the inherent electoral input and focus on this whole proceeding is undeniable here. So I do appreciate the point in the call. We got to take that next break right now. So you have a good one. We're going to take more calls after this break here, but we got to get to it. Make sure we can get to the end of the show here. So that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. Homeland Security Investigation Special Agents in El Paso, along with Border Patrol, rescued a 1-year-old girl after the toddler was separated from her mother by human smugglers. Border Patrol agents assigned to Santa Teresa encountered a migrant family from Mexico, a 37-year-old mother and her 11-year-old son, near Magnut and Anapra on Friday. The family was taken to a processing center for family verification and processing, but during that processing, the mother stated that her 1-year-old daughter was taken from her by human smugglers in Mexico. Border Patrol agents investigated and discovered that the toddler was scheduled to travel to Dallas by bus on Saturday. They contacted HSI, who found the child and the smuggler before they departed El Paso by bus. The child has been reunited with her mother, and the alleged smuggler, 23-year-old Rube Ramos, has been arrested for transporting an undocumented non-citizen. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 eastbound at Giles, an accident is blocking 3 right lanes and causing a huge backup right now all the way back to Viscount with 10 to 15-minute delays. Joe Battle Boulevard northbound at Montana, a multi-vehicle accident from earlier this afternoon. 3 vehicles involved. They're all off to the right, blocking the right shoulder. Crash with injuries on Red Road just south of Helen of Troy. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We have another mild night ahead of us as temperatures drop back to the lower to mid 70s overnight with light winds. But getting into the middle of the work week and on into the weekend, we can expect to have more triple-digit heat. There will be a slight cool down on Thursday as a little moisture tries to move back in. That will not only help to cool us off, but also could give us an isolated chance for some showers and storms.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
If you like storytelling that isn't woke, then listen to Red Pilled America. This week, we tell the origin story of the transgender movement. Listen to Red Pilled America every week on the free iHeartRadio app. That's Red Pilled America. You're gonna love it.
If you like beef jerky, chamoy rims, and dulces enchiladas, then you've got to visit Craving Sweets. Craving Sweets with a K. Sundays at the Upper Valley Farmers Market. Find Craving Sweets on Instagram and Facebook for more info. Mention you heard Craving Sweets on the radio for a special treat.
The podcast Deliver Us from Ervil reveals the dark story of Ervil the Baron and the reporters, cops, and insiders who tried to take down his vicious, organized crime family.
When I arrived in that town, I expected to find it under siege, people living in fear. But instead, I found something more interesting than that crime I had originally been sent to cover.
Listen to Deliver Us from Ervil on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. Brought to you by DuckDuckGo. Search, browse, and email privately, all for free with the DuckDuckGo app.
Maybe you've had to put off a health appointment or two during the COVID-19 pandemic. But if you're 45 or older, there's one test you shouldn't put off any longer. That's your regular screening for colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is the leading cancer killer, but can be prevented with regular screenings starting at age 45. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. It takes guts to put your health first. Ask your doctor about your options today and visit cdc.gov/screenforlife for more information.
Don't drive much, don't pay much with Paper Mile Insurance from Allstate. Life is good when you're in the driver's seat. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today. This report is sponsored by Allstate.
There won't be much substance on your news feed until you add us. Just like us or click on the link at kcsmradio.com. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. A lot of commentary, a lot of things coming on here, including someone addressing me, saying that a previous caller was very disrespectful and condescending to you. Go out of your way to accommodate his rants. He displayed his true nature. I mean, people often show who they truly are, but I guess I'm not too worried about disrespect for myself. I can handle it. It's when it starts coming towards saying that everyone else listening is an idiot kind of things that I start having a little bit of an issue here, because beating up on the rest of the audiences, that's not something I'm willing to take. But don't worry, I can take it in a lot of other ways when it comes to disrespect. Well, if I wasn't able to do so, we wouldn't be doing this damn show, among other things here. But let's get back to the calls from the line here. Again, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Andrew on the west side here with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you for this show that you host in El Paso.
No, thank you very much for that here. What was on your mind here today?
Yes. Do any of your sources or know if any of these hotels downtown have any of them been contracted to house this flow of undocumented immigrants? I remember Judge Samaniego saying, they've contracted or with some agencies.
Yeah, and there have been some federal contracts to that point here for like temporary placeholding, essentially, is the best way I can think of it. To my knowledge, no. I'm aware of some others that are more like, once they hit the gateways, those kind of hotels. I don't know any off the top of my head addresses I can give you, but in fact, actually, on the El Paso Matters story on this factor about the contracts that have previously been considered, they actually have one of the hotels mentioned here, Best Western off of Airway Boulevard, that was used. So there is, of course, documentation on this. As for the downtown ones, at least the ones that have been being majorly renovated, I would be very surprised and very unhappy if any of them were being used for the contracting on this, because let's just say there's a significant difference in the price point, to my understanding.
Interesting. Okay. Well, that pretty much answers my question. I appreciate it. Number two, I wanted to address some of the things that Raul character mentioned. He talked about Fox not showing or not broadcasting the hearings. Well, not entirely correct. It will be carried on the Fox Business Channel.
I mean, I'm not surprised that is going to be the way they handle it here, because let's just say there is an audience there that has certain proclivities, and any news stations, as much as they may have their stated goals to well balance, transparency, etc., they often are, of course, ultimately culpable to their ratings. So that's why we, among other things, take somewhat of a risk and a stance in the way we talk about things. But yeah, I'm not going to be surprised if any station either leans into it or leans back from it, depending on what they expect their audience's reaction will be.
True. Also, wanted to point out what happened to the Capitol Police. Apparently, there was 2,500 Trump supporters. Not all of them breached the Capitol, but they have the Capitol Police consists of 2,000 sworn police officers. For you guys out there that were in the military or other or police units, that's basically 2 battalions. What happened to the DC police? Okay, that's 3,000 officers right there. Capitol Police, that's over more than twice of what El Paso Police Department has.
I mean, yeah, that is pretty significant here. I'll say this, from what I saw on the day, and of course what has come out in small part since, they were not all, of course, concentrated in that one area. And at least to my not totally expert in this, uneducated and amateur viewpoint, it seems, I know there were some people talking about, and it was documented, of them saying, okay, move back, move barriers, because it was kind of a tactical retreat, I guess, is the way it was thought. And I almost wonder if there was then the consideration of, and then there might be other forces stationed around, National Guard among others, or DC police coming in to therefore back it up, but they didn't know that at the time here. So that's why, again, among other things, I have fully been in favor of a full investigation into what happened. And for that to happen, I got to imagine that some of the political concerns would have to be put by the wayside, which doesn't really seem to be happening here.
Well, all I can say is this: if you have with 2,000 sworn officers, if you can't control a situation like that with that many people, you need to reevaluate the structure and the training of your agency. But that's all I have to say. You have a good day.
Yeah, you as well. Thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate it here. Trying to get to a couple more calls here on the line as well. We do have Kevin on the east side here with us right now. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you very much. I am honored to be able to talk to you and be on your program, and here's why.
Okay.
Your podcast is one of the most reasoned and mature programs I listen to on the radio. I understand that there are different sides to issues in this, and some people really get off by yelling at each other, insulting each other, screaming at each other, and all this. You, however, Andrew, sit as a judge on all of this that's going on in your courtroom, which is the audience of this station, and you present a reasoned and dispassionate view and analysis of what these people have said, and you never insult them. I've noticed that a lot, that you're really good. I have two suggestions. I don't know if they'll get implemented, but here they are. First of all, I would like to see your program expanded to 3 hours, and I would also like to see you, with your reasoned approach to things, to run for office in this city or in the state. That's all I got to say, Andrew. I appreciate your comments on that.
I appreciate it as well. Thank you very much. We do take criticism and commentary on this, so I will take it in balanced measure there as well. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You have a good day there as well. The only reason for those looking online here that I'm cracking up a little bit at that second part here is because I have thought about that, the idea of public office, and oh boy, am I much preferring the position we're in here now. Though I do admit I would like to see more people of, let's just say, a reasoned concept of how they're analyzing policy and such involved with it. But oh god, that's just whole bag of cats to get involved with here. So yeah, we got a lot more to talk about with the just the idea of actually having to deal with the people we talk about on here. It's laughing gas to keep from crying, I guess, is the best way I can think of my mental state when it comes to a concern like that here. So we gotta take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll squeeze another couple calls as much as we can and a whole lot more. Tell you what we got coming up for you on the show here, so stay tuned for more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff we'll get to here, so back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound at Giles, an accident is blocking 3 right lanes and causing a huge backup right now all the way back to Viscount with 10 to 15-minute delays. Joe Battle Boulevard northbound at Montana, a multi-vehicle accident from earlier this afternoon. 3 vehicles involved. They're all off to the right, blocking the right shoulder. Crash with injuries on Red Road just south of Helen of Troy. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
If you like storytelling that isn't woke, then listen to Red Pilled America. This week, we tell the origin story of the transgender movement. Listen to Red Pilled America every week on the free iHeartRadio app. That's Red Pilled America. You're going to love it.
New on Curiosity Stream, she was a loving wife, a devoted mother. She also stole atomic secrets and gave them to the Soviets. Meet the woman whose deception kick-started the Cold War on the spy who stole the atom bomb. And
what if they catch you? Then I shall be shot.
they're coming! Come back! Relive history's most death-defying escapes. It's Impossible Escapes, Civil War. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit CuriosityStream.com.
Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Blue Star medicated ointment works fast to relieve the pain and itch of almost any skin irritation.
It's amazing. It's like as soon as you put it on, you can feel it working. We've had Blue Star in the family for years. It works on everything.
I love the cooling sensation on my athlete's foot.
What a relief for my eczema.
Nothing worked on my dry, cracked skin until I tried Blue Star.
Blue Star is great for scalp itch.
Look for the white box with the blue star in the first aid section. Feel Blue Star work fast or your money back.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
Stay informed at KTSMradio.com. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Covered a lot of ground today, and I am sure that will continue apace throughout the rest of this week, if not fully well beyond. A couple of things I want to remind you about that we got coming up. Again, we do, of course, have that giveaway with Gentleman's Republic Barber Salon and Men's Spa. If you are really ready and willing to give your commentary over on the iHeartRadio app, again, real simply, all you got to do is download the app, go to our page, the 690 radio page, and press the little microphone button there. Leave your 30-second comment, and you will be entered into that drawing. And, of course, we'll play some of those on air. So it's just another way you can get at us. And the simplicity and streamlinedness of that system means if you put it in before the end of a show, we can even get to it before we get to, well, the end of that show anyway. But getting to at least one last call here on air. We do have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Yesterday, I was probably mistaken, but I was left with the impression when we talked about what was happening to the January 6th defendants that you were okay with them being held over a year in jail waiting for their trial.
Oh, no.
Was I mistaken?
No, I would not say that. I mean, bond is well, frankly, it's this whole other show, I will be honest with you. But them keeping them there as part of any part of, I guess, prosecutorial reason, as in, I mean, I think there's been some example setting. There has been some you better make your plea to get out kind of thing here. So them being kept in there for no other reason than the prosecutor wants an outcome here is not a good reason for there not to be bond available.
You think that both the Republicans and the Democrats should be called out on this?
I mean,
they should be doing something for these people?
Quite possibly here. I mean, honestly, if you really want to delve into it, bond and the way it is assigned in this country here is a mess to begin with, though that's a little corollary, but not to the point you're making there. Yeah, having this be something, I mean, it's often not talked about. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I haven't seen a lot on it. So, yeah, in general, the idea of this being something not addressed and being just allowed to lay out there and hopefully it'll come to a conclusion whenever the trials do is not exactly satisfactory. I will agree with you there.
Also, one other thing, in deference to Raul, don't you feel that the January thing, basically, I'm not going to be watching the show and everything, but that it's going to be a production put on by a producer of a movie of this thing. And isn't it kind of interesting that on the day of the bombing, on the day of the insurrection, they happened to have a bomber that was outside Kamala Harris's office with all the video and everything else, and not one thing has been said since then about tracking down that bomber, where they have been able to track down everybody in D.C. Throughout the United States, haul them back to D.C. for trial and put him in jail, but they can't find any kind. They can't find this bomber that was there at the time of the riot.
Yeah, I think someone else referenced that as well. The idea of there being these improvised explosive devices. I think pipe bombs is how they were getting more technically described out there. That they're not being much on that is also another question that I would roll into my general call for the idea of there should be investigations into all of this, because there's a lot of unanswered questions, and I will be surprised if I am left anything less than, well, fully not completely unsatisfied by what's coming here. So we're going to have to leave it there for today because we are out of time here for this program. I want to thank everyone who has tuned in, called in, commented, participated in the show. Seriously, the input is what makes this work. So if y'all want to chime in there, don't forget about the Talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app. But don't forget, we'll be back tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road. And have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow. Stephanie Seifert on tomorrow. More investigations.
traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Good news, I-10 eastbound is back open at Giles Road exit. 3 lanes were blocked there from a multi-vehicle accident. Still a backup to Viscount, but the delay is disappearing now down to 7 minutes. An injury accident Montana Avenue eastbound at Sioux Drive, and a crash with injuries North Mesa Street at North Wrestler Drive. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invite